Welcome to another episode of Sew Comfort with Amanda. I'm your host, Amanda, and I'm excited that you are here today to learn to paint with fabric with me and to learn a little bit more about the world of sewing. So let's dive into today's tutorial, which is going to be about a very simple crib-size quilt that I actually designed. And it's super fast, super easy to make. This is going to be a roughly 40 by 50 finished. And it just takes 3 fat quarters, which is 18 by 22, or 3 1/4 yard cuts of fabric, as well as a 1/3 of a yard for that bright orange border and a 2/3 of a yard for the outer border. So this is actually very simple. It doesn't take a lot of fabric, doesn't take a lot of time. Really enjoyed working on making this pattern for a project that I'm doing for a church in my community for their kindergarten room. So really excited to see how these are coming out. Today's fabrics are going to be these cute little butterflies that I've already cut into 9-inch squares, which is going to be our first step. So let's turn around the camera so that you can see what I'm doing with the actual fabric. We're here at the actual mat, and what I want to go ahead and show you is how we are going to cut your 9-inch squares. You will need 12 9-inch squares, which is why I suggested 3 fabrics. So this is my butterfly, my pink, and now I'm going to cut my yellow. You'll need a rotary cutter and a ruler. The acrylic worked the best for me. I love this one by Omnigrid because it has a hook that allows you to hook it on the edge of the mat. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and straighten up, use my grid on my mat, cut off the salvage, which is the printed portion. It's where the fabric is loomed. And I'm going to count, this is 5 inches. So I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4 inches over, and that's going to give me a 9-inch square. It doesn't matter where you cut on your mat. As you wear down the lines of your mat, you'll find that eventually your rotary cutter will go through and you'll have to get a new one. So I try to move my fabric cutting around 4, 6, 8, 9. I just count a second time just to make sure that I have the right amount. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. You can use math, you can count with your fingers, however works for you. It is totally up to you. It's your project. It's just I do it both ways. So anyway, there you go. We now have 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow. And that is all I'm going to cut for now. I'm going to actually make the center of my quilt, measure it, and then cut my inner and outer borders. Okay, I got a little ahead of myself and forgot to show you how to lay this quilt out. This is an alternating grid pattern. So you start in the top corner with whatever your feature fabric is because you want to see that along the middle row. So you start with your feature fabric, then whatever your second color is going to be, and your third. And you just lay it out in an alternating pattern. Because we ended on the yellow, we're going to start with a yellow here, then our butterfly, then comes our pink. Then starts our pink and our yellow, because that's what comes after pink, and then our butterfly. And the bottom row you can't really see because of how I've got this camera angled. However, it starts with the butterfly, the pink, and then the yellow. So now we know which way we're going to sew. I always just fold to my top. And then I take it to the machine as a unit so that I can chain piece my project. And chain piecing will make it go faster. I've shown it in videos before, but this will make it go much faster when you're going to the sewing machine. And then I just pick it up in units of 2. And I know that the top is the top of my quilt. And then I would just take this over to my machine and start sewing it. All right, so you're going to bring that top unit under your sewing machine. I recommend getting a 1/4 inch foot if you have one. If not, mark a 1/4 inch on your regular straight foot. And we're going to go ahead and just start chain piecing. which is why I had you stack everything and match up all the corners over on your cutting table or cutting mat, wherever you have it. And one of the reasons I love quilting is quilting just lets me let go and not think about whatever's bothering me. It helps me to relax. It's very precise, but there's still room for a little slip up here and there. The 1/4 inch foot keeps you honest. Something I found when I first started learning how to sew is that I often was not honest with my quilting. Without the 1/4 inch, it would slide all over the place, and sometimes it'd be a 1/4, sometimes it'd be 3/16. It was all over the place, but you could always go back and fix it. Okay, there we go. We got our first 4 done. And I'm gonna pause and grab a pair of snips because I'm going to snip off that top unit. We know that our next unit is going to end in yellow. I mean, our top unit ends in yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and line that up and have it ready to chain piece. And then we do the exact same thing with all 4 units. Now, something I love about the Pfaff that not all machines have, my Pfaff has a walking foot. Some are integrated, some are a third-party unit. You just have to look at your user manual. But what it does is it helps your quilts not run away when you're piecing, which also helps you go a little faster, which is really nice. So, same thing. Grab my snips, snip off the second unit, and that one starts with yellow, goes to butterfly, so we're going to grab that pink. And now our pink gets matched up in the top corner, just like that, and the bottom. All right. And off we go. Now, excuse me, I just noticed they walked a little bit. I use my fingernails when I see a walk like that because it's a teensy tiny bit of fabric that I need to move it down. It's only 1/8 of an inch. And then same thing, under the walking foot it goes. Always use your left hand to guide unless you're left-handed. Then it's totally up to you. So then butterfly is next because pink is first. Measure up, or match up, I should say. There may be some imperfections in your cutting, and that's okay. Once all your units are together, just take it over to your mat with your ruler and straighten it up after you press the seams, of course. All right, and then one last unit to put together after I come over here and snip the ends, like I said before. Okay. And then this should match your top, which was butterfly, pink, and then yellow. So over here comes my yellow. Match it up to my pink. So you'll have 2 units of 3 that are actually the same, and it just you just have to determine which was your top and which was your bottom. I love this quilt because you can use larger prints that are sometimes hard to cut down because your repeat is 7 or 9 inches. So this is really a great way to do novelty prints. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and cut that off. Now we're going to separate all our chains with a pair of scissors. Which you couldn't see me doing that one. Okay. And they're in order. So as long as you keep them in order, when you go to iron, it'll be in the right order to put your units together. Okay, head over to the iron. All right, wherever possible, you want to make sure that you are ironing to your darkest fabric. If you cannot, then you want to make sure that you press open your seam instead of pressing to the dark. So you can either press it as one unit to the darker side of the fabric, or you can press it individually to the lighter side. Okay. You can hear my iron just heated up. Now this is my top, so I'm pressing to that darker side. All right. So when I flip it over, I have pressed to my right. Okay. Did not get a good press. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right, and I'm going to repeat that process for the next row with my butterfly in the middle. And since I pressed this one to the right, now I need to press this one to the left, which is going to be just making sure here. Yeah, press it to the left. In this case, I am pressing a lighter fabric, that yellow to the light pink, so it is okay. Okay, so you're going to repeat that for the next 2 rows. And then I highly recommend doing some pinning with this particular quilt. Very simple pinning. You're going to take your top row, put the right sides together with the second row, take 1 pin. So if I'm doing this right, I've pressed the seams in opposite direction, which eliminates bulk. If you don't like doing it that way, you can always press the seam open. Whether they're light or dark, it's totally up to you. Either way, you're just reducing the bulk whenever you sew. So then I pin it like that. All right. And I'll take it to the sewing machine. Now you're going to do the exact same process for the next 2 rows. So there you go. All right, I came to the other side of the sewing machine so you can see a little better. So this is the 1/4 inch here. And I'm going to go ahead and join the 2 units. As you can see, I only put 2 pins in here. Kind of take my pins out before I get to the joins, although that's because I have that 1/4 inch foot, and you don't really want to run over a pin so that it doesn't accidentally break off the tip or break your needle. Okay. And you can chain piece this as well, which is what most quilters will do. You just already have that second unit lined up and ready to go. And sew it through the sewing machine, lining it up with that 1/4 inch foot, the guard on the 1/4 inch foot. Before you put your borders on, you will want to trim up your quilt and make sure all the edges are even if you take off 1/8 of an inch, or actually you want no more than 1/16 is really what you're aiming for. It's really not that big a deal to the overall size of the quilt at the end of the project. Okay. So now we're going to open up the 2 pieces. And we have our top unit and our bottom unit. Match up the pattern. Your main print is now going to be in the crisscross here. So what I'm going to do is flip over the units. which in theory, you should be ironed the opposite way. In this case, I messed up and did them two of the same directions. Technically, you can leave that. It will be a little more bulk in that area when you go to sew your quilt top. Not the end of the world, just not considered a best practice. This is where I always say, if you can't see it from a galloping horse, just let it go and continue on with your project. Now, I do know some quilters will tell you if you're going for a precision project and a blue ribbon at a fair or a quilt show, you will need to pick that apart, that entire seam we just did, and fix it. Yeah, okay. This is a quilt for children to enjoy at nap time in a kindergarten class. So we're just gonna let it ride. All right, here we go. We're gonna sew that center seam. And because all the units were already pre-pressed, and we're just doing 3 long seams in the center, you do not have to go to the ironing board in between. If you were joining units that hadn't been already pressed, I would recommend pausing and going to your ironing board. But again, for minor mistakes, just let it go. It's kind of like in life. If someone can't see it and only you know it's there, smirk and move on. That's all you can do. All right. We're going to cut it off. And now we are going to go ahead and take this all over to the ironing board. All right, now we're back at the pressing board. Take our iron and press all our seams down towards the bottom of the quilt. Not really just best practice, just what most people will tell you to do. Usually, because you're going to a darker fabric, you'll take a lighter to a darker, but not always. I mean, it just depends upon what fabric you chose. But we have 3 long seams, and we just need to do the same press all the way down. Okay. Sorry, I didn't have my big lights today, but I just wanted to go ahead and do this video because I wanted to show you guys how quick and simple this quilt was and make something that's beautiful for family or friends. Okay. All right, and then if you're being extra precise, you come back and you gently pull out the folds, any folds that might have pressed incorrectly, and you repress the top. And try not to press creases into your actual quilt. Always a fun thing to do. Okay, there you go. Repress that entire. And now that's the center unit of your quilt. And I'm actually going to conclude this video with this part of the project and take you into, or the next video will show you how to add the borders onto it. So, all right, here we are. I want to show you that finalized and pressed center of our crib quilt. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to measure and cut the borders so that you can add them with more precision and so that they don't stretch. So I hope this video has been informative to you and that you enjoyed this project. If you did, please give us a thumbs up on YouTube and like my channel, Sew Comfort with Amanda. Until next time, I hope that you will enjoy painting with fabric.